Hello, it's Sarah from Hardcover Hearts, and I'm here today with my week of reading wrap-up. This is where I talk about books that I've read this week, books that I'm currently reading, and then what I could read next week, depending on mood or whatever comes into my hands or into my fancy. So let's talk about what I finished. I had a great reading week despite being very busy at work. I started Villette by Charlotte Brontë. I was looking for something to listen to, and I saw it on Scribd and thought, oh, that would be perfect. So started to listen to it, and I will say that it took me a good bit to really figure out what was going on. For a long time, I just couldn't understand what was the main thrust of the book. At some points, it felt like it was a romance. At some points, it felt like it was a school teacher yarn, and other times it felt like a comedy of manners. It just was kind of going in multiple different directions, and I couldn't really understand where are we going and what's the point. And it wasn't until I realized that this is really a deep character study. There's one woman who we really start off with knowing her only in young adulthood. We don't really hear a lot of backstory. She's very unknown to us, and we only know through her eyes and her point of view. And you start to realize how much she does not tell us, but we get to see. We get to see her in love with someone who does not love her back, and in fact, wants to talk to her about other people that he is caring about, and the pain that causes her, though she will not admit it. We see her with another love affair that she doesn't recognize as such. We see her just struggling and having a breakdown because of the stress and because of the things that she's keeping to herself and keeping her own counsel for. There's a lot here, and there's a lot more depth than what is on the surface. So much so that I have decided I'm going to reread this next year for Victober, because I'd like to come back to it knowing what I know now, to see as how things progress and the breadcrumbs that were left that I missed through the first reading. So that's exciting. My first success for Victober, and it was a doozy. The next one I wish was a success for me, because I had high hopes, but didn't really come together. This is The Murder by the Book, a sensational chapter in Victorian crime by Claire Harman. So what Claire Harman's doing in this nonfiction book, and I'm stretching the bounds of what we're supposed to do with Victober here. This is not written in Victorian times. However, it is about something that happened in Victorian times. So I'm going with it. What she's doing here is she has two main stories going on. The first is about this murder that took place of this lord in his own bed, and people can't figure out who did it. So that was very shocking, really rocked the foundation of society at that time. And the second story is the story of what's happening in the papers and the literary world at the time, because a new book came out from this man named Ainsworth. And the main character is Jack Sheppard. And Jack Sheppard is kind of a criminal ne'er-do-well who really gets away with all sorts of bad things. And we nowadays are used to this. I mean, look at what just won the BookTube Prize, A Ladder to the Sky by John Boyne, which is the protagonist is one of the worst people ever. But at this time, this is completely unknown. This was not something that they had experienced, in the idea of following a character that has bad intent. And so this really was a polarizing thing. It shockwaves through society. People thought it was a horrible thing. We shouldn't be aggrandizing impoverished lower classes and bad behavior, all of that. And in this, two different authors come to the foreground at the same time. We have Dickens, who is a proponent, as we know of, and an advocate, and helps to explain what happens in the lower classes, and to think about the class structure and things like punishment and all of the ways that the lower classes are kept down and what that experience is like. And then you have Thackeray, who kind of sits on his high horse and writes these editorials denouncing this book and all the copycats that come of it. The reason it didn't work for me is because the two different stories were so differently paced, and that I really wanted to follow one, but I didn't really care about the other, which is a shame because I'm not sure how she would have done it. I'm not a writer, but they just didn't meld together in the way that I would have liked. So I gave it a 2.5. I'm happy I read it because it gave me a lot of information. The societal pieces really kind of slowed down, and I felt a little slogged down by that. Then my first admission, I've been a really bad buddy reader. So I apologize to all of my buddy reading compatriots out there that I'm participating on things with. The first one is The Pickwick Paper, and this is by Charles Dickens. This is his first novel. So how I failed my buddy read partners, I failed them because I was either going too slow with this and not catching up as fast. Then I switched over to audio and then I flew. It was just, I could not stop listening. What ended up happening is that there is a character in here that's introduced, and he's the valet, and his Cockney accent, he switches the V's and the W's. And in my head, I was hearing that as like a German type of accent, and I knew that wasn't right. And so it just kept confusing me. When I switched to audio, it just everything clicked in, and it just shot off. So I couldn't stop listening to it, and I ended up finishing it ahead of schedule. Sorry. Now, there were some other people who did some other things too. I will leave them nameless. But I apologize for having rushed so far ahead on this. I won't leave my thoughts here. Just to say, I'll probably do a wrap up of my Victober experience after, and I'll put something about the Pickwick Papers in that coming at the end of the month. And then last, once I finished Villette, I needed to find another audiobook. And I remember that one of the prompts was to read a play by Oscar Wilde. And so I looked on script, and voila, The Importance of Being Earnest was there. I've never read The Importance of Being Earnest. I think I saw it on an airplane when I was coming back from Africa once. A trip I think there was a movie, I think Minnie Driver was in it. Rupert Everett, very hazy, you know how flights are, international flights are. But I didn't really retain or understand what was anything from that. So this was a completely fresh experience. I loved the wit and the banter. I thought it was so funny. It was funnier than I expected. And, I always knew that Oscar Wilde is known for his wit, but I didn't realize how subtle and how ridiculous some of it could be. So this was just fun. It was just a fun listen. The audiobook was fantastic, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. So way to go, Victober, my first Oscar Wilde that I enjoyed tremendously. Now let's talk about what I'm currently reading. I am determined to do better on this buddy read, doing a buddy read of North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. So I'm so excited to start this. So many people have left comments about how much they love North and South, and knowing my loves of class and workers' rights and those types of things, I think this is going to be a winner for me. Fingers crossed. I'm so looking forward to jumping right into it tonight and maybe trying to read this weekend. So we shall see. And it's another one of the Pan Macmillan beautiful little copies. So excited. And then I started listening to The Portrait of Dorian Gray because I had such success with the first Oscar Wilde. Now, I was shocked that it was so different. This is much, much more serious. And so I'm having a moment of trying to recenter myself with the material. but I'm going to continue with that one. Then the only thing that isn't Victober that I need to get back to is Ducks. So my In Real Life book club meets soon, and I need to go back to this. I think I just need to just sit myself down and just go for it. So Ducks Newburyport by Lucy Ellmann is something that I have to conquer. And so that's my current. And then future things I could read. I have a few of these small, really delightful Penguin classics, little black classics, I think they call them. And I have a few of these that I'm really interested in, specifically Woman Much Missed. I just think that title is so beguiling. Like it's a siren call for me. I want to read this. This is Thomas Hardy. There's another Oscar Wilde. This is Lord Arthur Saville's Crime. What could he have done? So, and I have a few more, but I think I might try one or two of these, see if I can slide these in. And then the last thing that I'm going to read, I might try to fit it in this next week, we'll see, is The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope. I am looking forward to getting started with that. So fingers crossed. Ideally, if I finish North and South this weekend, I can jump right in. So that's it. That's my week of reading. I hope you had a fantastic week. I can't wait to hear what you're reading. Let me know below if you have any thoughts about anything that I have read or what I'm leaning toward moving forward. And look forward to talking to you soon. Bye.